Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Cabinet meeting on the 16th of February 2023. We'll start off with the formal items on the agenda, so that's apologies for absence, but I think we are all here. Is that right? Yeah, excellent. Welcome. Declarations of interest and minutes of our previous meeting.
Move them.
Move. Thank you very much. Item 4 is leaders' announcements. Obviously, we've got a packed agenda in front of us today, so I'm not going to add anything specifically under this item today. Item 5 is financial monitoring, which is pages 11 to 36 in our packs. Councillor Ray Evans.
Thank you, Leader. This report is for noting and provides an update on that presented to Cabinet in January. Since that time, there has been a small amount of change, with the protected outturn position now expected to be over budget by 4.6 million, a small increase of 29,000 since the last report. However, using budget contingencies will bring the overall position within budget for the year by £7,000. The main service changes are positive movements within education and skills, Treasury management benefits, together with savings achieved through active vacancy management. However, budget pressures continue to be experienced in adult social care relating to long-term care, and corporately additional costs arising from 22-23 pay awards. Members are asked to approve the recommendations at section 1 of the report.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Thank you. Are there any comments or questions about the financial monitoring? No, from the group leaders? Okay, it's been proposed, it's been seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move on to item 6, which is the medium-term financial strategy for 23-24 to 26-27, pages 37 to 404. Councillor Ray Evans.
Thank you, Leader. The medium-term financial strategy before you is broadly the same as that presented to Cabinet on the 6th of January, together with the addition of updated risk register, details of the Council's tax reduction policy, pay policy and efficiency strategy. These are accompanied by previously agreed strategies with updated budgets and schemes of work. These include the capital strategy, supported by detailed programme reports covering the Council's building investment, highways and transport programmes. Underpinning these are our investment strategy, Treasury management update report and strategy, which have been considered and unanimously approved by the Audit Committee. The final part of the budget papers include the Prudential Indicators report, which together with the robustness of budget statement should once again reassure those who have expressed concerns about the delivery, sustainability and exposure to Treasury management risks of this strategy. Cabinet, the medium-term financial strategy has now completed its period of consultation, with engagement events having been undertaken with town and parish councils and representatives of the voluntary and business sectors who were in support of it. No alternative budget was presented to the Business and Finance Scrutiny Committee, who have voted unanimously to support it. Cabinet, this strategy is forward-looking, is based on sound financial management and puts the residents and businesses of this borough at its very heart. That's why, whilst 3/4 of other councils are planning to levy the full 5% increase, we are proposing, once again, to freeze our general council tax for the next financial year and only preset the 2% adult social care charge expected by this government, leaving our council tax likely once again to be the lowest in the Midlands and one of the lowest in the country. Cabinet, you are asked to approve the recommendations set out in section 1 of the report so that they can go forward for consideration by full council on the 2nd of March. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Is that seconded? Before opening up to members of the Cabinet and group leaders, Councillor Steve Reynolds is here on behalf of the Scrutiny Committee. Steve, is there anything you'd like to say at this point?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present the feedback from the Business and Finance Scrutiny Committee regarding the budget proposals for 23-24 and the medium-term financial strategy for 23-24 to 26-27. The main points that came from the the Scrutiny Committee was that there was no alternative budget was put forward by any opposition group. The committee would like to thank generally the Cabinet Member for Finance and also the Chief Financial Officer and all the staff that both for the presentation that we received and answering questions that came to the committee or were given out by the committee, so in its deliberation. The committee also thanked those officers involved in providing written responses to some of the questions that were raised. By a majority, the members supported the administration budget approach, and the committee made the following observations. The majority supported the proposed freeze of the general level of council tax for the second consecutive year and the proposal to apply the government's assumed 2% adult social care precept for the next financial year. Supportive of the proposed budgets for adult social care and children's safeguarding revenue amounting to over 100 million, equating to over 2/3 of the total revenue budget. Members understood the one-year funding settlement from the government and recognised the potential uncertainty over the remainder of the medium-term financial strategy that runs to 26-27, and that projection for future years will be updated as additional information becomes available. The investment proposed in the budget strategy was supported by the majority of the committee members. 2 members of the committee did not feel able to support the proposed 2% increase in adult social care and the proposed investment proposals. The committee was understanding of the changes to the local government finance system that may be introduced in future years. The committee asked various questions around reserve contingency in relation to inflation and the impact of inflation on borrowing, and members were reassured that the council had a general budget contingency of 3.95 million for next year and a total allowance of 10 million for inflation and pay award pressures, and that all aspects of debt management are monitored regularly by the Chief Finance Officer and his team as part of the regular financial monitoring. The committee was pleased to see that the council continues to look for additional income streams for better value of services procured from external providers. This leads to an increased income streams for a more commercial approach to the services that Telford and Wrekin provide, which help to minimise the likelihood of cuts to our frontline services. The committee and chair thanked members for their questions over the proposals, and the Chief Finance Officer and his team who continue to monitor council finances, and especially in regards to the future of business rates retention. The committee was complimentary of the council tax position of remaining the lowest in the Midland region for 5 consecutive years, and it's likely to remain so for 23-24. So that's the report from the Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for what you do as chair of the committee, and also thank you to the members of your committee and also the Democratic Service staff who support the work of the committee. And thank you for coming today to contribute to the discussions. At this point, I'll open it up to members of the Cabinet. Paul Watnam.
Yeah, thanks, and I want to say thank you to Scrutiny, thanks to Ray and to Ken and his team. I mean, this is a good report. It would be helped, of course, Ken, I think, if we had some stability in knowing what our funding is going to be over 2 years. Michael Gove was at the Local Government Association conference last year and promised us a 2-year settlement this year, and we haven't had it, and it's disappointing. It's not the way to run a business like this. And you know, those people who are in control of the finances at central government should know that. We continue to run this in a prudent and positive way. We run a council that is proven to be to be positive in terms of the frontline services we provide, but also the way we're dealing with the austerity that this government is forcing on the people of Telford and Wrekin. We've kept this council tax low again, which I'm really, really proud of. Proud that we continue to keep the council tax low, even though our friends in the police commissioner has put up the council tax for the police by 6% this time. Now that's for me really, really amazing. And the reason they put it up, and I hear from the opposition at times about double taxing, the reason the council tax is going up with the police is because the police are underfunded by 18.2 million by the Home Office. 18.2 million is the deficit that the West Mercia police have at the moment. Now we need to be clear where these problems are coming from. They're coming from central government. We'll continue to manage as best we can manage here, and thank you to Ken and the team for doing it so well.
Thank you, Paul. Andy?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. I think first of all, it's thanks to the sound financial management that Councillor Evans referred to that we've been able to not only keep council tax low, but also to protect adult social care. And you'll notice in the budget that we've allocated an extra 7 million in the next year. I've heard criticisms, I've seen criticisms by the opposition that we shouldn't even be raising the 2% levy. The reality is the government expects that is part of the package that local government will fund adult social care with, and beyond that we have to recognise that we need every penny we can get from in order to sustain adult social care. Despite that, we are putting in 7 million. The extra 2% only raises 1.6. The extra government contributions still don't get us to that 7 million, and that's without doing the kind of uplifts to fees and whatever which we know the system needs if it's going to be sustainable in the long term. So we're battling this situation. We're managing it thanks to that sound financial management of this council. Without that, we would be in the kind of difficulty that many other local authorities are in at the present time. It's hypocrisy to talk about, to call for that 2% not to be raised, when the reality is that we can't manage as it is with adult social care in the longer term unless we have a sustainable budget. It's not, adult social care isn't fixed. It's the main pressure on our budgets at the moment. It's thanks to this council that we're still able to sustain those services locally. So I welcome this report and thank the finance team and Ray for everything they've done.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, just to build on that, I mean, it's a shame that since the changes of Prime Minister, the Tories have decided to throw out the fix in adult social care they kept promising since their elections, and therefore ask local taxpayers to try and fix it for them by making sure that they can fund it. And it is embarrassing that we've heard the Conservative group talk about not raising the adult social care precept when adult social care is in such a mess nationally, thanks to this government not focusing and dealing with it. As I said, Paul's right. The government have, they've took £130 million from this authority, but thanks to sound financial management, thanks to looking outside the box and getting income streams into the council, we're giving sound financial management to this council, thanks to Kenny's team and Ray and the cabinet for everything they've done. But also, it's not just the council. Public services, Paul says, the Police and Crime Commissioner having to increase council tax, a Tory Police and Crime Commissioner, because of underfunding the police. The Fire Authority, yesterday, Conservative led, put the council tax at 4.6% because unfortunately, Shropshire Fire Rescue Service isn't funded that much by the government. It's mainly majority funded by council taxpayers. That's not right. Public services need investment, and thanks to this budget, we're investing in our town, in our borough. And as the cabinet member for housing and transport, to see investment into new place, Telford Wrekin homes, giving high quality homes to local people with a responsible and responsive landlord, investment in transport and highway schemes, and also housing initiatives including affordable, warm, empty properties, rough sleep and temporary accommodation. This is a budget to try and deliver for all our residents, and I fully support this budget, but actually the Conservative group on this council needs to start lobbying their government to make sure that they fund public services across the country better.
Thank you. Shirley?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I firstly definitely want to give thanks to Ken and his team and to the Cabinet Member and Scrutiny for the work they've done on this. The fact they are able to produce such a sound budget, and it's not just a short-term budget, which is what our government seems to be doing all the while, it's the medium to long-term plan, is absolutely amazing, and it's what's within that budget. We are continuing to commit to what we've said: protect, care and invest. We're protecting our families. We're protecting families and being on their side, whether it's about giving them support during the cost of living crisis, whether it's about supporting families with the 10 by 10, the activities for £1, the free swimming. I had the pleasure this week of meeting a young girl who is the 500th who has been able to have success from our swimming. That child has gone from never being able to swim, from a parent who couldn't swim, through our scheme. She's now moved on to the 2nd grade already at the end of her first set of lessons, and her mum couldn't be thankful enough. But what did the government promise that they would do? They promised they would fix adult social care. They promised us 40 hospitals. They promised us an extra 20,000 police. But what have they delivered? Broken promises. The highest tax burden that families across this country have known. Inflation at the all-time high for 40 years. That is not what our residents should be having. Luckily, through our proven financial stability, even though we have got the Tory police, 6% increase, the Tory Fire Authority, nearly 5% increase, Tory nationally, highest burden. There is a commonality there compared to a local Labour council who are actually providing, freezing the council tax, lowest council tax across the West Midlands, maybe in the country, one of only a handful of authorities that have frozen it for 2 years running, even though we are being criticised by the opposition for not increasing our council tax. They actually think we shouldn't increase our adult social care. So what are we going to do with care packages? Are we going to tell local residents, actually, vote for a Tory and you won't get your care packages because they're going to take that 2% adult social care away? That means an awful lot to our families. And this is at a time where we're expanding. In my own portfolio, another 41 million is coming through for school expansions. That's new schools, that's expansions into the school programme, so our schools can be at the heart of our communities and families will have that wealth of education that they want. We're continuing to commit to safeguarding. We're investing in our young people, continuing to invest in adult social care, commitment to our elderly residents. It's across the board that we are building that better borough, and we are sticking to our election promises, and we will continue to do it again. Protect, care and invest, and we will build that better borough. This budget is absolute evidence that we do what we say. We do not deliver broken promises.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Eileen?
I'll keep it short. I haven't got much of a voice at the moment, so apologies for that. I'm not going to go over the points that have already been made. Obviously, they've been made very well. I do welcome this, and obviously my thanks do go to Councillor Evans and to the officers involved in running our budgets. It was just really to stress just how important it is to residents in our borough what we're doing with keeping council tax low. A friend of mine had put a post on social media just highlighting the increased costs that she'd had. Her monthly bills for electricity and gas had gone up from £360 per month to £730 per month just this month. You know, this isn't by accident. This is through the actions of the government that we've currently got. This is happening under their watch, and people are really struggling. And I think just to sort of stress that we are doing everything that we can to try to help people who are under immense pressure to try and keep their own household budgets under control. is just really important. So I think we've got the lowest council tax in the region, and we're going to try and keep it that way, and we always will be on the side of our residents. So I just really wanted to make that point. I thoroughly support this. Thank you.
Training. Lee?
Yeah, I fully support this set of proposals that have obviously been through consultation. This kind of exercise is a real complex exercise, isn't it? And actually we talk about it in very simple terms, but it's a really, really complex piece of work that pulls together all of the different funding streams, all of the different pressures that we've got at the moment, and brings it into a coherent piece of work that ultimately reflects what the residents have told us they want delivered. They've told us that they want access to better housing, so there's provision in there to drive up standards within the private sector. There's provision within there to build new council-owned homes at good rates of rent, with a really good, responsive, solid landlord behind them. They've told us that they want better life chances for their young people, and so there's provision in there to extend local schools, to provide extra school places, to ensure that we deliver the digital skills hub in the centre of Telford and Wrekin, which will offer fantastic opportunities for every young person in Telford and Wrekin. They've told us that they want their local roads, footpaths, street lights, cycleways, residential parking spaces all improved, upgraded, or provision of more, and there's provision in this budget for that. At a time when the government have cut £2 million a year from our highways budget, which by the way is equivalent to about resurfacing the footpaths in an area 4 times the size of the Nedge. That's the equivalent of the cut that they propose every year. We're saying we will invest in that priority for the public. They've told us that they want us to invest in our local high streets at a time when the government have been very slow in terms of getting money to us for towns funding. We're continuing to invest in our high street so that local businesses who want to remain on the high street or start up on the high street, or the local post office that wants to stay in the high street, or someone who wants to create jobs around our local high streets, we're saying to them, we will invest in that, we will put your priority as our priority. And then the biggest thing, and the thing I think we should all be proud, any elected member should be proud of here, is the care element within this budget. Not only the £100 million, and we talk about 100 million as if it's a really small figure, that's a massive amount of money going into the care of our adults and our young children in particular, but also the cost of living support package that's contained, the proposals that are contained within here. That's really caring. That's at a time when people need it most, as Councillor Callear said, and the biggest single thing that shows we care, that we see our residents, that we hear our residents, and we'll always do our best for our residents, is that council tax freeze, that 2-year council tax freeze that I think we should all be proud of. At a time when you only have to go 3 or 4 miles from here, they're putting council tax up by 5%. So I'm really, really proud of this, that we're delivering this. It's a positive outlook. It reflects what the public are telling us that they want. It's delivered at a time when there's great uncertainty from the government. Again, they've given us a short-term funding settlement when actually what we need is certainty, and we need a long-term assurance around our funding. I'm really, really proud that we've delivered this, and everyone is entitled to give alternatives. That's what democracy is about. But when you do so, be honest and upfront with the public and tell them exactly what that means. If you're proposing not to raise the adult social care part of the council tax bill, then be honest with the public and tell them that what that means over 4 years is a cut equivalent to 250,000 hours of care for local old people. Just be honest. Put forward your alternative proposals, but be honest with the public about what that means. As I say, we see our public, we hear the public, and we want to deliver for our public, and that's why I support this document.
Thank you. Kelly?
I really support this, and thank you for the Ray and the team for all the work. Do you know what? I was thinking, I was away last week, and when you hear everybody's view of Telford and Wrekin when you go anywhere, we're so well thought of and respected for this work, for the work we do, for a council that really cares and really matters. Our residents matter to us, and we're really well thought of. So everywhere I go, I'm really proud to say I'm from Telford and Wrekin for that reason. And you know, leisure services. When I speak to other towns, they're so envious of the fact we have our service in the house and we can work with our public health teams and we can because it's about living well. If we don't live well, we're not going to age well. Our social care is going to be exacerbated, and that's what we're seeing from all the cuts that have happened. We've got to live well, and part of living well is swimming and health and activities, and our children growing up healthy and of good mental health and well-being. So we have to invest in that. We're investing in their future, we're investing in our people in our town, and that's really, really important, because what we don't want to do is wait till they get to the social care age where they need all that funding putting in. So let's get people living well. That means our swimming lessons are the best offer ever that we've had the uptake of. People want to learn to swim, they want to be healthy, and people want their children to be safe. Learning to swim is really important. We haven't got the capacity for swimming pools, and we need to grow our sites so that there's more capability for people to do that. So just think about investing in living well. We all need to live well, and that's part of what we're investing in now. We're investing in people, we're investing in children and young people, and making sure that when we get to the ageing well bit, that the resources don't need to go in as much in the future, isn't it? So.
Thank you, Kelly. Carolyn?
Thank you. There's a lot been said, so I am going to be brief. Obviously, yeah, I mean, thank you to Ray and to all the team for this report, and for the work done on the consultation, because I think that's really important. You know, with this came to us previously, it's then been shared with the public and with all those different groups and businesses for people to then put their comments on, and just echoing really, I mean, what Lee's just said in terms of, and others, the services we provide as a local council touch every aspect of people's lives. We deliver so much in local government, and the word that jumps out at me in this report, I haven't done it as a word count, I'm not that sad, but I'm sure if I did, probably the most frequently used word in this report is uncertainty. That just isn't good enough, is it? We're running services that affect every single person's daily lives, and yet the government simply doesn't give us more than this kind of next 12 months, and that comes really late. So our ability to plan is really hampered. We still manage it, we do it well, we think forward, we're very forward thinking, and we put all the caveats in just in case, but it's not good enough. Local government are supporting people, changing their lives in the ways that all my colleagues have described, and we need much more certainty, and instead we just seem to be getting chaos and incompetence from the Conservative government. It's not good enough, and if they can't deliver, they really do need to step aside and let in a government that can. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Yes, there's a number of factors here. I think trying to put ourselves in perspective with the rest of the country, where the vast majority of other local authorities are taking the opportunity, because they're forced to increase their council tax overall by 5%. And there's 3 councils that are basically bankrupt, and they're having to raise their council tax with special permission by 15%. So it's fantastic we're in nowhere near that position. I think the other thing I really want to pull out is the staff that we have here. When you think of the cuts that we've had to make, ever since this issue has been going on, it's been going on for over a decade now, the austerity we've had, our staff in our local authority have had to bear the brunt of this. Some literally have had to lose their jobs. Some have had to be really fleet of foot and change working practices, move to different departments. And not only that, because of national pay agreements and what the government will allow, they've had a huge real pay cut, most of them. Just in this year alone, I was thinking about it. You know, inflation now has slowly come down to 10%. We'll be giving them pay increases probably of around 4%. That's a 6% cut in their pay. It's just not on. You know, it really isn't on. And I know it's causing all sorts of recruitment problems for us as well. So that is a dreadful position. And it all comes from our government that we're in and the mess they've got us into. We talk about uncertainty, and we have in terms of finance, because they can't even get together and organise a plan of how much they're going to give local authorities in the future. But the certainty we have is based on the record that we've had for 10 years. We're not going to get anything. And I think that is the certainty. And yet local authorities can deliver and deliver services that are fantastic for everybody. The other one that gets my goat is carbon neutrality and global warming. We're trying, and the strategy of the local authority are putting forward to try and really improve this. But the big bucks either coming through us for us to work here, like my pet one is the trees. We've got such 12 million trees in our borough that we look after, a third of which have got ash dieback. We need to replace them. We haven't got anywhere near the resources to do that. And yet carbon neutrality would be fantastic if we had that funds. If we had the funds from them, we could deliver it. Smaller government, that's the other certainty with which this Conservative government is coming out with. Smaller government sounds fantastic, less bureaucracy. What it means is they're trying to cut back, but they expect everything to carry on, like adult services, children's social services. They know full well the local authorities are going to have to raise council tax. There is no option for them if they've got any morals at all, and we're trying to look after vulnerable people. So it takes the headlines away from central government, the Conservative government. It's not our fault. It's the nasty local authorities that are doing it to you. How immoral is that? The only one other plea I would make is that the finance team here have done a fantastic job in putting this together, and I welcome Steve's input as well. The challenge that I give them all, seriously, is can they get the report back down to a sheet of A4? That would be most welcome. No, but I didn't know you need the detail, but thank you.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yes, I'd certainly like to thank Ken as well for the work he's done. Probably like the kiss of death, Ken, coming from this direction. But as ever, going through the budget proposals, I have to say that the support that we've had doing that has been absolutely first rate, and I thank you for doing that. People are struggling in the borough, that's absolutely right, and as a local authority we should be doing everything we can to support local people, and it comes down to choices. You have a budget, however tight that budget is, and what you decide to spend your money on, that's fine. That's local democracy, and that's what it's all about. We all know this really, is where does that money come from? And what's caused the problems that we're facing at the moment. And there's worldwide problems. I don't need to go through COVID or the war in Europe, or indeed the pressure that's now on defence spending to actually protect our way of life. You know, there is a certain amount of money this country has. It spent a lot of money on COVID, and at the end of the day, those choices are there, no matter what the government is. As having a 2-year settlement, a 3-year settlement, great. Absolutely fine, you know, we'd all welcome that. But historically, that has probably, they've been few and far between by whatever government comes along. And local government finance has been a problem. Now, you know my views on social care. I've made those pretty clear. I would like to see that funded centrally, and it's a great disappointment to me that that's not being done at the present time. And hopefully we can get that sorted out. Because what's going on with this is reducing our choice in a budget on what we can actually spend, where we decide to spend it, and everywhere else. That has been eroded successively over probably the last 20 years or so, and it's not been very helpful at all. We're looking, as a local authority, to a very difficult time. And look, I can admire to a point, you know, a local authority doing everything it can to support local people. It is absolutely right that we do that, but it does come down to that choice of what we're going to spend. Now, one or two comments have been said about an alternative budget, and I have to say, that in all the time that Labour were in opposition, you never did an alternative budget. And as I say, the choice on where you can go actually changes. But there are issues, I'm sure, and we haven't finished going through this. We still have more meetings planned with finance officers and more questions that we'd like to deal with. It is right that we look at and that we question, certainly in the times that we're facing at the moment, of what you're proposing to spend right across the board. As I say, I will, you know, reinforce the social care package is essential, absolutely essential, but so are many other things. But the amount of resources that this country faces, and as I say, it's not peculiar to this country at all, are quite limited at the moment. Now, I welcome what the council has done so far. Whether that's gone far enough, well, that's a matter for debate, and that will certainly have at full council. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Firstly, a big thank you to every member of staff, from our cleaners and facility management to our caterers, to every layer of management in this council, not just for the last 12 months, but the last 12 years of working to make this organisation as an efficient and as effective and as focused as possible. A big thank you to every member of our senior management team, and of course Ken and his colleagues for the work that they've done to get budgets in on time, on budget, and to deal with mitigating factors. And I say that to every member of our staff, and I equally say that to every member of our cabinet member team here too, because this is not just a one-off. Can we pause there so people can hear my great words?
We have to throw something on the floor every time, don't we?
Just move the table.
Thank you, Stacey.
Guest appearance, Stacey.
Thank you, Stacey. Thanks very much. So I want to say a big thank you, because it isn't just a 4 or 5 week process. This is about every day of the week, making sure that every pound that we spend here as a council is efficient. I cannot believe that there are councils not too far away from here proposing spending £3 or £4 million on consultants to tell them how to be an effective council, a Conservative run council just down the M54. We've got a team that I'm proud of, and I know for seeing Facebook and Twitter and social media, the keyboard warriors bashing out posts from their spare bedrooms, attacking council staff and planning officers and communication officers, the cowards that sit behind their computer screens having a go at public servants who can't talk for themselves. Well, let me say something very, very clearly. I'll never stop defending public sector workers in Telford Wrekin. I'll never stop standing up for council staff who do a day's job and a day's work. Will that be social workers who are attacked by the keyboard warriors? Will that be planning officers who have innuendo thrown at them? Or will there be communication officers doing their job, informing the public about things that are great in this borough, having stones lobbed at them? It's pathetic. It's pathetic, and it's bully boy tactics that we are seeing on Facebook, and I'm not going to stand for that. I want to also talk about the fact that this Labour Party here in Telford Wrekin is the true low tax party in Shropshire. When the Conservatives run this council for 4 years, and thankfully it was only 4 years, between 2007 and 2011, they hiked council tax up year after year after year. 6%, 7% council tax increases at a time when the economy was starting to flatline, and at a time when the government were putting more money into Telford than they were taking out of it. And as Paul Watling quite rightly says, if you look at your council tax bill, and I ask residents to do this, look at your council tax bill. It's made up of 4 or 5 lines. Telford and Wrekin Council, Labour run, freeze, this year and last year. A freeze, by the way, last year that was opposed by Telford Wrekin Conservatives. They voted against that freeze. The Police and Crime Commissioner, Conservative, a 6% increase on your council tax. Fire Authority, Conservative-led, 4.5% council tax increase. The government adult social care precept, an extra line that the government put in as a temporary measure a few years ago, increase by 2%. At a time when you look at your pay packet each and every month, you're paying more tax than you've ever have done before, certainly for the last 70 years. And the irony is you're getting less back. We keep sending this money to London, we keep sending this money down to Whitehall, but each and every year we get less back. And what do we hear from the Conservative apologists in Telford and Wrekin and Shropshire? It's everybody else's fault but the government's. Well, it isn't everybody else's fault but the government. We saw that in the 44 days of Liz Truss being the Prime Minister, when she wiped off billions of pounds from our economy and saw mortgage rates and rent rates go through the roof because of the incompetence of that Prime Ministership. And we've got Rishi Sunak, who doesn't know what he's doing, and we've got a Department of Levelling Up who aren't even allowed to spend any money on levelling up anymore because they weren't doing that properly. It's chaotic. And we stay here today passing this budget, and we still have not got the public health grant. We still have no idea how much money we're going to get through through to this council to spend on public health to help people stay out of hospital at a time that the NHS is in crisis. We've got the third worst A&E waiting times in the country. It's just pathetic and bizarre that we've got an incompetent government. But what I will say, just finally, on this budget, it is a budget of hard choices. And we've seen no alternative other than the Facebook posts and the sniping. We've seen zero alternative yet again. And we can go back to 2007 to 2011, a long time ago, when Labour were in opposition, whether they did or did not put forward alternatives. I don't care, really. We're here now. And yet again, we've got no alternative, no amendments, no suggestions of doing anything else, other than, I go back to my start, the little Facebook posts sent out at 9 or 10 o'clock at night from a spare bedroom, having a go at council staff, having a go at a budget, when they haven't got the ability or the know-how, or they can't be bothered to put forward a workable alternative that we can look at. When you're in power, it's difficult. When you're in power and running a council, it's hard. But what I will say to residents in Telford Wrekin is we will not be distracted from those Facebook, social media bullying posts. What we'll be doing is getting on with the job, keeping council tax low, making sure you've got services that you can rely on, and making sure that you live in a borough that you can be proud of.
Well said.
The budget has been proposed and it's been seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Cam. Thank you, Steve. We'll now move to item 7 then, which is the Telford Wrekin Age and Well Draft Strategy, 405 to 456. Councillor Burford.
Very much, Leader. I think the point I'd like to make about this report is contained within the title. It's about celebrating later life, and I suppose I should have started by declaring an interest. We all know that the census data is telling us about this massive escalation in the older population. We've seen a 36% increase between the two censuses in 2011 and 2021. That's a given. Now that makes some people worry that it might be a burden on services. It might mean that we're moving in the wrong direction. We need more younger people to do the work, etc., etc. I won't go over those kinds of arguments, but what I will say is that we should be seeing the older people in this borough and everywhere as making a positive contribution and helping them to make that positive contribution. That's what, if you talk to older people, they want to do, what many of them are already doing. We should be celebrating that fact. And I think that, for me, is the backdrop to this paper, to this draft strategy, which is before you. The strategy is being developed along the well-established principles of partnership. It isn't just led by the council. It's with our partners, very strongly with our partners. Two key partners, for example, Age UK and the NHS, are both quoted in the foreword. It's devised and drawn up again with the principle of co-production, which, as we know, means that older people themselves are involved not just in drawing it up, but in monitoring it and in overseeing its implementation. And that's been a strong theme in the work that we've done so far. There's a strong focus in here on addressing inequalities, as there should be. We know about those inequalities in health. We know the kind of inequalities that are arising from the cost of living crisis, those at the forefront of the considerations. You'll see in the report the key themes which those involved in drawing it up have identified as important, and they're on page 12 of the report, worth having a look through: where we live, health and well-being, the impact of the pandemic, transport, digital inclusion, financial security, and carers, all of which will have their own actions identified and monitored, and as we move forward. The consultation has been a really successful process. Thanks again to our partners like Age UK and Health Watch, who've helped with that. that process. We've managed to reach a lot of people already. That will continue. And my thanks go to the adult social care team, Sarah and her staff who've driven this. And I think it will become a really important focus for the way we approach services and the inclusion of older people in future years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. Is that seconded? Any comments or points from members of the Cabinet? No? Group leaders?
Yeah, I very much welcome this report. My experience of people in, shall we say, mature years is that if we look, we've had a real argument here about how much we're having to pay for care packages. But when you look at how much caring is actually done by, shall we say, mature people, of themselves, of their loved ones, of their grandchildren, we rely a lot on mature people. And the other thing I notice around my ward and in my own church is the amount of people that are in their 80s that are really active and want to take part in life, and they're getting so much out of life and they're giving back so much into their community in voluntary work and everything else. So sometimes I've found that they need a signpost. They don't know either what's going on in the local church, what's going on in the local community centre, where they can join in. And if we can help, I know the NHS locally at my medical practice are doing that. They're trying to provide people, particularly with mental health issues, say, look, do you know this is going on? That we can have a great job in communicating and pointing and everything else, which I know we're doing a fantastic job, but that would be great because there are so many people out there that could be taken out of their boring living rooms and be able to do something. There is just so much we can all watch at daytime telly.
Thank you. Andrew, anything from yourself?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The first bit I welcome is actually on page 417, where it says, and I quote, "Just because you're over 50 doesn't mean you're past it."
Exactly.
Like Andy, I probably subscribe to that view, and I'm pleased to see it. I'm slightly concerned, and this, I'll stress this isn't a criticism, and that is the response that it is TF1 centric. There's a lot of the rest of the borough out there. Now, how we overcome that, I'm not quite sure. But that's sort of consultation and involvement. Also applies around the rural areas as well, where the same issues affect people. It's probably more difficult for people that are slightly more isolated to get involved and take part in this sort of thing. Now, I'm not sure how you get over that. And as I said, I'll stress, this isn't a criticism, but it is something that I think we need to address. Otherwise, there may be the potential there for sort of outcomes and feedback to be skewed somewhat.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, there are significantly more from the TF1 postcode, Andrew. But I was actually encouraged when I looked at the figures. It isn't that bad from some of the more rural areas, which have traditionally been harder to get response from. But I think the team will be making sure as we go forward that we don't lose sight, especially of some of the rural issues that will affect those populations in those areas. So I think we need to continue to pay attention to it.
Definitely. I think certainly one of the things that's really strong from this paper, Andy, is just how much work we've done with partners, and we're really up for having a conversation, particularly with our rural parish and town councillors, and may I say our rural ward members who've got a role to play in this, to make sure that they are out and about and talking to people and feeding those views in. And also the work of our communications team in terms of direct mail shots and the engagement that we do, and targeted social media things that we do. It's a process that there's no end point to, but I think, as you, Sandy, quite rightly, things are looking good. Just before we move off this paper and I take on the vote, this is Sarah's last Cabinet meeting with us, and our last last couple of days with Telford Wrekin before she moves on for her promotion and her benefit of wisdom going up to the north of the country. Sarah, from myself and I'm sure all members in the room and councillors, thank you so much for all that you've done here in Telford Wrekin during your time as our Director of Adult Services, and we're really proud of you, and we wish you all the very best. And not everything is permanent, so maybe one day you'll come back to Telford Wrekin, and you'll certainly be very welcome. So thank you and good luck in your next job and opportunity.
Thank you very much.
That's been moved, it's been seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, we'll move now on to item 8, which is the Telford Wrekin Domestic Abuse Strategy 23 to 25, which is on page 457 to 492. Councillor Kelly Middleton.
Firstly, I'd like to thank Liz, Helen and Joe, along with our teams and partners, for all the hard work on this strategy and area of work. And also thank you to Safe Lives, who supported the implementation of the Domestic Abuse Act, and have also invited us to their launch in Parliament for tackling domestic abuse. More importantly, thank you to the survivors of domestic abuse for your input. Your speaking out is vital in guiding our support services and ensuring they are effective. Your bravery is commendable, so genuinely thank you. Our last domestic abuse strategy for 2019 to 21 was approved by Cabinet in December 2019. The key priority was to develop local services and support for survivors, children and young people affected, as well as perpetrators. The implementation of the strategy was affected by COVID, but there was special emphasis on people affected by domestic abuse during the pandemic, and we commissioned and publicised extra support given and heightened concern for victims during lockdowns. The Domestic Abuse Act 2021 gave new duties and responsibilities to local authorities and partners, and during 2021 the new Telford and Wrekin Domestic Abuse Local Partnership Board was set up and steered the refresh of our strategy. We have a strong Domestic Abuse Forum, which is a network of stakeholders, champions, volunteers, community organisations and service providers, offering a strong local survivor voice. We are gaining external recognition for the authenticity of lived experience, which is embedded into the strategy and work programmes. Considering the Council's plan, Protect, Care and Invest to create a better borough, and to health and wellbeing, community safety and safeguarding adults and children and young people's partnership agendas, these strategy commitments contribute across them all. The strategy is based around 4 pillars: partnership, prevention, provision of services and support, and pursuing and protection. The new service, commissioned to Cranston in partnership with West Mercia Women's Aid for the next 3 years, is operational from June 2023, and the local authority domestic abuse grant supports the funding of the new contract. As part of the strategy approval, we'd like Cabinet to sign up to the Child Parent Abuse Covenant, a pledge we will be the first council to sign. Include the important topic of conversations, policies and practices, support staff members and volunteers to gain more knowledge, and encourage an environment where staff and members of the public they come in contact with can feel comfortable talking about their experiences without judgment and blame. PEGS, Parental Education Growth Support, a local social enterprise based, are working with Department Worker Pensions to promote the Covenant. They are part of the forum and will be the first local, again as I've said, the local authority to sign up. The survivor statements within this strategy are powerful, and the emphasis and the importance of this strategy and the work the partnership are undertaking. As it says, no one should live in fear. It's not acceptable, it's not inevitable, and together we can make it stop.
Thank you very much, Kelly, and thank you for your work on this. Is that seconded? Any comments or questions from members of the Cabinet? Eileen?
Just a really quick comment around this, and just thank you for all of the work that's been put into this. It's such an important strategy. I can't stress how important having a good strategy like this in place is. Just for me, one of the key parts of this strategy is the fact that it is perpetrator focused. I think that is a piece of work that has needed to be done for quite some time, and I think I really do welcome it. I think having been through domestic violence myself for quite a long period of time back in the day, it's a big change from that period where at that time victims were sort of made to feel like it was their responsibility to change things. They were often sort of put more pressure onto them to do something about it than the perpetrator themselves. And even for the children that are involved in these environments, you know, they were often sort of used in a way almost to add more pressure to the victims of domestic violence. And I think this strategy takes all of those things and puts in place the sort of framework that you need to ensure that the problem, which is the perpetrator, is dealt with first, or a major focus within the strategy. And the rest of these things, you know, we've got other parts of this that we can put in place with different orders and the linking up of services that will come together. But if we can deal with that perpetrator focused side of this, I think it will be a really good strategy. So I really welcome it. Thanks to Kelly for all of her work on it as well.
Thank you, Eileen. Thanks for your very personal contribution to the discussion. Caroline, then Shirley.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Eileen's just said, and actually, whilst we're sort of taking that perpetrator focus and trying to, I suppose, be part of that turning the tide of how domestic abuse is viewed, we can still see now currently in the press, can't we, that that's not universal, is it? And in the recent horrific murder of Emma Patterson, the head at Epsom College, and her daughter, is being presented in the press as, she was a very successful woman and her husband couldn't cope with that. That's just not good enough. That's just, we can't accept or tolerate those kind of attitudes and that kind of reporting. A woman and her daughter were murdered. There's no excuse for it. There is just simply no rationale that justifies that murder. So I really welcome this strategy, dealing with domestic abuse, not just against women, but, as Kelly has said in the introduction and is in the report, domestic abuse does affect everybody, people from, men and women and people with disabilities, and some shocking stats around people with disabilities in this, in the assessment here. But I think some really good positives, obviously the successes and the things that we've done since 2019. So we are a white ribbon town, but it isn't just about a badge, it's about actually putting things in place, making a difference, supporting people, and we're doing that and we'll continue to do that. And I really welcome the child to parent abuse and the commitment to dealing with that. It's a really difficult thing, isn't it? I haven't been in Eileen's position, I haven't been a victim of domestic abuse, but and I think we know that it's very hard even then for someone to leave their partner. But if it's your child, that must be even harder, because you love your child no matter what. You can't leave your child, they're a child, but you need support to deal with that situation. So I think recognising that happens is fantastic, and then working with the various groups and also with people who are dealing with that to understand how we best support people is absolutely the right thing to do. So really, really welcome this piece of work. Thank you to Kelly and thank you to the team for all the work they've done on this.
Thank you, Shirley.
Just a quick one, a lot has already been said. I mean, it's a fantastic report and I really welcome the work that's happened on that. Just picking up on the last thing that my colleague said about the PEGS group, I have actually attended quite a few training sessions with them, and also have spoken to quite a few of the families that are dealing with this issue, and that is at the heart of it all. It is families that are having to survive this issue, and as has already been said by my colleague Caroline Healy, it is really difficult because these are your children, but this abuse that is happening, and in some cases it's really difficult because the child doesn't even realise and recognise what they're doing. So I'd be more than willing to work on this with you if it helps at all, Kelly, because I really would like to work with you, get this signed, be the first council to sign up to it. And if any of my colleagues have got the opportunity, please attend any of their training sessions. They are so informative, they're amazing.
Thank you. Richard?
Yeah, can I just add, I mean, as Councillor said, we are White Ribbon Town, and that was something that was brought by Councillor McClemens many years ago as a Labour administration, because we wanted to focus and deal with domestic abuse, and the team since that time have worked hard to develop a strategy and now to refresh the strategy, and it's really welcome that we do focus on all types of abuse, really, from an LGBTQ plus relationships to child to parent relationships. So it's really great that we're focusing around all that type of abuse, because we want to see that abuse stopped altogether, but the strategy has to deliver that, and I'm really proud of the team and all the work they've done on this since it was started many years ago, and now getting all the partnerships together is brilliant. So I just want to thank the team for all their work on that.
Thank you very much. Group leaders? Andrew?
I thought about knocking the microphone off. There was some sort of leadership bid that was going on down there. I've read through this report with some interest, and it was when I got to the end of Appendix 1 that I finally found really what I was looking for. There's page 490, or 26, page 26 of Appendix 1. And that's about protection orders, disclosures, that sort of thing. Now, I'm very pleased to, welcome that men are included pretty well through this now. That's important. But also children as well. And I would ask, really, that the wording, or one word is replaced in this, is it's the middle column on that page. It says that where possible, legal orders or other restrictive measures or conditional requirements are sought, applied for and enforced, so on and so forth. I don't think the word where possible and possible should be replaced, really, with where necessary, which is quite a considerable change in that. Now, there is a cost in doing this, and I accept that people, many people, I'm sure, involved in abuse may not have the wherewithal to take out or seek injunctions or court orders against their abusers and to stop this sort of thing continuing on and on. Now, that also applies to children as well, but it also applies to children when they get older, when they become adults, in actual fact, that this sort of thing can go on and on. And I would ask, really, and there's a financial cost for this, that really, if we're looking at this, and it should be where necessary, wherever we can, that the budget is put to one side, or we seek legal advice or help that would do it at a reduced cost, to actually pursue this sort of thing where it's necessary. It is very difficult to do, it is time consuming, and it is expensive, and I believe it is well outside the reach of many people to do that. But there are times when that becomes absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I welcome this report, and I think central to it really is listening to survivors and victims that have had to go through this, and giving them an opportunity to talk, as you say, without pointing the finger and it was your fault, to listen to them sympathetically, but to learn from what they tell us, because for a lot of people, fortunately, it's an alien world to them, which we have to be thankful for. The majority probably is, and they therefore can't understand what other people go through. So for officers, for us as members, to actually be able to listen to these brave people who are willing to tell us about their experiences, it's important, because from that then we might be able to learn more about how we can prevent and support these people in the future. So,
thank you, Bill. Just in terms of your comments, Andrew, I'm going to reflect on the points that you make. That said, I've looked at the document. I think it's actually in respect of the policing criminal orders that page refers to. Andrew, please just let people speak. So I'm going to reflect on what you've said and also link into the police, because I do know that DVPO's, domestic violence prevention orders, and DVPN's, domestic violence prevention notices, is what we're talking about, where the council doesn't have any input at all in terms of those orders being taken out. So I will reflect on it. We'll talk to the police about what, the points that you make, and we'll report back to council when it comes back to council, because it will make its way there. Can I just add just one thing, just around seeing this policy area through the lens of everything we do? I was struck by speaking to a tenant of Telford Wrekin Homes, or New Place, I'll make it that general so not to specify who it was, who talked about the fact that she was a victim of domestic abuse, and the fact that she couldn't get decent housing was the main reason why she wasn't able to leave the home, the family home, and the fact that we had a product that she could trust and rely upon was really, really important to her. And I think that links into a whole raft of different things, doesn't it? That actually every policy intervention that we do needs to be seen through this angle, whether that be access to health and wellbeing support, whether that be access to counselling, whether that be access to housing, whether that be access to transport, employment advice, and the work that Jobbox does, and the work that our benefits and welfare assistance teams do. is really important. And I was down at the Crisis Network the other day in Sutton Hill, and I was really, I've got to say, quite shocked but not surprised about the number of food parcels that organisation gives to people who are, you know, in work, they are financially stable, or they're accessing benefits fine. But if you consider that if you need to leave your home in a rush and you haven't got the ability to go and get your things together, and that includes money, because often it's joint accounts and things like that, the access to food bank support and start-up furniture support is really important. I think sometimes we just see with the conversations about funding here or funding there, but actually we need to see it through the eyes of people who are accessing those services. It's been a good discussion. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Helen, and your team, and Kelly, for your work on this. It's been proposed and it's been seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now move to item 9, which is the regulation of investigatory powers and policy and annual update, pages 493 to 542. Ray.
Thank you, Leader. This report seeks Cabinet approval for the revised regulation of investigatory powers (RIPA) policy, which will govern how and in what circumstances these investigatory powers are used. The revised policy seeks to streamline processes and clarify actions to ensure that the powers are used effectively and with complete transparency. It sets out the ways and circumstances in which the surveillance powers may be exercised and defines the decision-making hierarchy for doing so. It also reinforces the roles and responsibilities of the relevant officers. Cabinet, you are asked to consider and agree the revised RIPA policy, note the Council's use and compliance with RIPA for the years 21 and 22, and delegate responsibility to the Director of Policy and Governance to make any necessary amendments to the Council's policy as a result of legislative changes for administrative convenience.
Thank you, Ray. Is that seconded? Thank you. Any comments or questions? Any comments or questions? No, it's been moved. It's been seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much indeed. We'll then move on to item 10, which is the enforcement policy in relation to the relevant letting agency legislation. Councillor Richard Overton.
Thank you, Sean. I'm pleased to bring this report to you today on the enforcement policy relating to letting agencies. As you know, this council is on the side of our residents and is committed to supporting both tenants and landlords to ensure better homes for all. Our teams from Trade Standards and Private Sector Housing continue to work in partnership and utilise the recently appointed Landlord and Tenant Coordinator to provide support, advice and guidance where and when needed. This collaboration supports both tenants and landlords while ensuring consistent approach to housing enforcement. The paper brought forward today, if approved, is another tool in our enforcement box. The policy in this report will ensure that tenants are only charged permitted fees, that letting agents where necessary are members of a compliant resolution and client money protection scheme, and that letting agents' fees and charges are transparently displayed and publicised appropriately. Current legislation enables the Council via the Trade and Standards team to issue financial penalties for breaches of consumer protection legislation. The policy sets out how the Council will enforce the legislation and determination of the financial penalty where non-compliance occurs. Alongside existing housing enforcement powers, enforcement and compliance monitoring will have a positive impact on tenants, providing them with financial certainty when renting property within the borough. This is another example of a Labour Council on the side of our residents continue to create a better borough by protecting, caring and investing. I therefore move the recommendations in the report.
Excellent. Is that seconded? Thank you. Any comments or questions from members of the Cabinet? Any questions from the group leaders, Bill?
I've had relatives who, shall we say, lived in dubious rented accommodation, and to have somewhere that they can go to independent of that to try and get advice as to what to do, and the fact that we can exert certain pressures to help these situations is very welcome. So along with all my other thing about my inability to tap into technology, as long as we've also got people that are on the end of a phone as well as a keyboard, then I'd welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been proposed, it's been seconded. All those in favour? Everybody, thank you very much. Thank you. And item 11 then is the long-term empty property strategy, 21 to 26, update, pages 573 to 592. Councillor Overton.
Thanks, Sean. In 2021, Telford Wrekin Council adopted its long-term empty property strategy. This plan supports the priority set out in the Council's overarching housing strategy, which is to specifically make the best use of our existing homes, supporting communities by addressing the blight that empty properties can create, and providing homes to support those in housing need, including our most vulnerable. We recognise the negative environmental impacts that empty properties bring, such as the increase of risk of fly tipping and antisocial behaviour, but also that every unoccupied property is a wasted housing opportunity for our residents in need of affordable accommodation. The report is to update Cabinet on delivery. Since the base date of the strategy, we have brought 117 long-term properties back into use, against our target of 375 by 2026. Of the 117 properties brought back into use, 2 properties have been empty for longer than 20 years, 4 properties have been empty for longer than 10 years, and 3 properties longer than 5 years. 33 properties have been empty longer than 2 years. We will continue to work with our residents to tackle the blight that these empty properties cause. This administration is clearly on the side of our residents. The sustained focus on bringing long-term empty properties back into use is enabling us to tackle some of the most challenging properties which are impacting on our communities. We are also improving the overall condition of housing in the borough and, as mentioned previously, increasing the affordable housing choice for our residents, which is a win-win for everyone. I therefore move the recommendations of the report.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Any comments or questions from members of the Cabinet? Carolyn?
Yeah, I really welcome this report, and thank you to Richard and the team for all the work they've done on this. I mean, I think it's just such a good policy, isn't it? And I think it's another example of how this council, just is creative and thinks outside the box in terms of dealing with issues. We know that people need homes to live in. We know that empty homes attract fly tipping, let down the appearance of our areas. So you're dealing with those two things with one really sensible policy approach, and it just makes sense, doesn't it, that we ensure that homes that are there. So rather than waiting for some absent landlord to eventually turn up and do something with that property, that we're very proactive, take action, and bring those properties up to a standard, and up to a good standard as well, to a good EPC rating, so that they stay warm, they're easier to heat, and efficient in their energy use. And people can then live in them and be part of their community. I mean, I just think it's a fantastic project. I think we should be singing it from the rooftops, really, that we're doing this here in Telford Wrekin, and it's just another example of how we're very much a forward-thinking council on the side of our residents.
Thank you very much. Any comments or Bill?
I had a property, mine, and the officers were brilliant. Now we've actually put an officer in charge and with some support as well. It was a probate issue that had been going on for over 6 to 8 years, and that property is now finally occupied. And I think with the help or the encouragement, shall we say, of the team here with regards to the finance company that literally owned that property through repossession, it's now occupied and being lived in, and the local residents around there are really pleased, even though they were cutting the grass. They were actually going out and cutting the grass and keeping everything, but they couldn't get round to the back garden where they had rats, and they had all sorts of other things in there which our teams had to go in and sort out. So I'm really pleased. I'm also pleased that within our strategy we've kept open the possibility in the most extreme cases of where we need to do a compulsory purchase. I think that's really important because it gives people in those areas hope that something will be done and these places will be occupied. I think we've also an empty home strategy. We're fortunate maybe that we don't live in Devon and Cornwall, where there's an awful lot of homes, and I know Wales are looking at legislation now about empty homes, where holiday homes are left empty for such a long period of time, and homes for local people, and not just, well, I haven't got that issue. I mean, maybe not have that issue, but no, I welcome this report.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I agree with this one, for all the reasons that have been stated, really. You get an empty property like that deteriorates. It does attract all sorts of problems, from antisocial behaviour to vermin. And looking back, I can see it takes quite a long time to actually see these through from start to finish. And all I can say really is I wish you happy hunting with it. And the more you do, the better.
Thank you. Just a couple of points around. Firstly, really interesting graph at 4.2 in the report, which talks about the type of interventions that the team does. Actually, advice and support by far is the mechanism that works, which tells a story in itself. Often we see the issue through the empty property bit, but actually there's an owner there that sometimes there's very complicated reasons behind the scenes why things can't be brought forward. So that advice and support clearly useful, but then using enforcement as the option. I had a case in my own ward where a house had been owned and in a very, very poor state of repair for many, many years, where the owner would come for a few weeks and then disappear for 2 or 3 years and then come back again. So it wasn't an abandonment, the house wasn't abandoned, we knew who the owner was, but actually the owner sadly died, and that without a will, without known family, therefore that becomes very, very complex, and the team worked very, very hard, and I'm glad to say that that house is now back in use and being used as a family home. I'm particularly proud of the fact that Telford Wrekin Homes is being used now as a mechanism at the end point as well, where appropriate, of course, not always appropriate, but where appropriate, where we're able to bring these homes into the ownership of the council through New Place, and then be able to be a landlord of choice through that mechanism. And I'd like to see far more of that coming forward. And I know it's difficult because often the renovation works is very, very expensive, but what I would challenge is if a private landlord can do it with a margin for a rent return, then I'd hope that we could do that too. But fantastic work, well done everybody, well done to the teams, and Richard for your leadership on this. And as you can see from 4.2, 117 houses, with, if you think, that's probably 400 people now living in those homes who weren't living in those homes before, paying council tax, contributing to the community in a positive way. It's a win-win-win. So well done everybody. It's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. We now move on to the last item on the agenda, which is a report from myself. As members will know, I very rarely use the strong leader decision mechanism, because I think it's right that decisions come through Cabinet, but from time to time when there's an urgency or a requirement, I will use that, and I've made a commitment that when I do, I'll bring it to the first available Cabinet meeting thereafter, and I also inform the relevant scrutiny committees of that decision. This decision relates to fixed penalty notices. Myself and Richard and others were quite struck by the fact that under our current policy, which was informed by the rules at the time, that if you paid a fixed penalty notice within a specified period of time, in this case 10 days, then the fee that you would pay to the council would be reduced quite significantly. Actually, when you looked at market research, it was cheaper to dump the stuff, get caught, pay the fine within 10 days than it was to hire a tip. So what we've decided to do is reduce significantly the early discount. So clearly there are benefits for people to pay quickly within 10 days from an administrative point of view, but that reduction will now only be £50. I will say though that having looked at made this decision, I think it's absolutely bizarre that the government cap councils on fly tipping of £400. I mean, why isn't it? Why can't we as a council, and councils across the country, why can't we charge the cost of enforcement, the cost of clean-up, and a deterrent mechanism, and use that as the measure? Why is it some desk in Whitehall can cap people's ability? So our message is clear to people: if you fly tip, and we've got the evidence and it's in the public interest, we'll whack you one of these fines and take you to court. But I do ask, and we will be writing to the government on this, why on earth they feel that they've got the need to cap us. It's just completely anti-democratic in my opinion. But in any event, that's the strong leader report. It's there for noting. Obviously, I propose it. Richard, you second it. Yeah. All those in favour, everyone's in favour. Brilliant. Thank you very much for bringing me into it. Thank you.